Hello, I am D.R. Karthikeyan, former Director of the Central Bureau of Investigation, former Director General of the National Human Rights Commission, former Director General of the Central Reserve Police Force. Talking about shifting of gears, in my case, I did not make any attempt. I went with the flow. There were a lot of shifting, of course, throughout my life. I am born in a farming family in a small village near Coimbatore. Devarayapuram is the name of the village. I studied in the Panchayat school, the local school with hardly any facilities, hardly any teaching as such. When all the other students in school and college were the advantage of born in family with a lot of educated people and went to good schools, enjoyed. I had to work very hard. In the evenings, I hardly had any time for any opportunity, for any games. Then college, I wanted to do agriculture because I am from an agricultural background. I like agri-farming. I joined BSc Agriculture. After that, I joined MSc Horticulture. But within a few months, I had to discontinue my studies from Annamalai University and went back to my village because my father had a heart attack. I had to look after him, look after the farming. After he got better, he said, no, you must go and study further because he never had the advantage of going even to college. He lost his father when he was very young. So to fulfill his desire, I agreed, but during my stay in the village, I found a lot of fight going on even between the brothers in the family. On for a few feet of land boundary dispute, they will have fight, gang fight, group fight, arson, rioting. Then they all entered into a taluk office or police station or courts, and they used to sell all the properties, fighting the case, and then enmity forever in the families. So I said, I will tolerate study, I will go study law and come back and try to solve these problems. So I joined law. After studying law, I came back as a lawyer. I did practice as a lawyer and also tried to sort out these land dispute between the brothers in villages, making them understand, don't fight for these things, compromise. But meanwhile, friends who have studied along with me in law, they appeared for the Union Public Service Examination and came as IAS, IPS officers, and some of them came to Coimbatore also for training. They met my father and said, please ask Karthikeyan to appear for this exam. He will easily get in. And my father, coming from a village, he also wanted to see his son as an officer. So to respect his wish, I had to appear for the Union Public Service Commission examination. There was a lot of attempt possible. I took up new subjects. I thought if I am going to spend some time, let me learn something new, advanced Indian economics, political organization, political science and all that, though they were all new to me. But then ultimately, I was selected. I had many choices, but I said if at all I am going to join, it will be an active service, so I opted for the Indian Police Service. Even then I was very reluctant to join, but many of my well-wishers advised, you join, go for the service, go for the training. If you don't like, you can always come back as a lawyer. I had to please my father. I had great regard for admiration for him. So I joined the Indian Police Service, allotted to Karnataka State. I had my training in Mysore, Gulbarga, Shahabad subdivision. I was promoted as Subedar Police. At the age of 28, I was the SP of the largest district in Karnataka, Dharwad district at that time. Today it's at 5 districts now. So, but then I was selected for the RNW, External Intelligence, but then the governor did not relieve me because they said he enjoys the confidence of both the Kannada and Marathi people. I cannot spare him. It's a long story. Then I landed up in Moscow through the External Affairs Ministry, again selected. A very interesting time. I can talk about it for 5 hours of that, my experience. I have to deal with the visit of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, Prime Minister, There I visited a lot of people. Mr. Gujral was my ambassador, who became Prime Minister later on. On my return, I was asked to join the in the IB, Intelligence Bureau, CBI, and all the organizations, central organizations wanted me to join them. But then my Karnataka state insisted I should go back to Karnataka. So I went back as the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Law and Order, Bangalore. Very exciting time, exacting time also. 18 hours a day. Yes, at that time, after that, I was asked to join the CRPF. Same time, I was asked to join the Intelligence Bureau and also CBI. But my state, Karnataka state, insisted on my return as Commissioner of Police, Bangalore. But I had made myself available to the Central Reserve Police Force. It was my first commitment, so I wanted to honor it because that will give me an exposure to the problems all over the country. So I joined the Central Reserve Police Force with headquarters at Hyderabad. We traveled to all over the country. My forces were deployed in Punjab, Kashmir, Northeast, so I was constantly traveling. And also the Central Police training institutions also in my charge. It was on 21st May 1991, late in the night, when I was in Hyderabad in my headquarters, I got a message, call from a PTI correspondent from Madras about the bomb blast at the public election meeting of the former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi at Sriperumbudur near Chennai. Few minutes later he said, he is feared dead. I was shocked because, like millions, I was also fond of Rajiv Gandhi. I had met him a number of times. All that is written in my book called Triumph of Truth about my meetings with him in various places and all that. I was shocked. I was in mourning because those days we didn't have so many channels. Only sad music was there the whole night. Morning I got a call from Delhi. First from Mr. KPS Gill, who was my boss in the Central Reserve Police Force. He was the DG of Central Reserve Police Force. You know, he was Director General of Police of Punjab, where he liberated Punjab from terrorism. He called me to say, Government of India want to request you to head the investigation team of Rajiv Gandhi assassination case. Did anybody call you? I said, no. Please call the Director CBI. I did not because I was mourning. Then a few minutes later, the then Director CBI called me, spoke to me about this, telling there is no clue. Neither the IB dealing with internal intelligence, nor the RAW or NW dealing with external intelligence could say anything. We had a big important meeting at the Cabinet Secretary's office. None of them could give any clue. It remains a mystery. Maybe it will remain a mystery like Kennedy assassination. But the Government of India wants the CBI to take up the investigation. And everybody here say Karthikeyan is the man to head the team. It said, unlike Mahatma Gandhi and Indira Gandhi assassinations, where people are caught red-handed, here in this case there is no clue. Then I told him, if that is so difficult, you should find out a person who is more senior to me, more experienced in the CBI. He said, no, everybody feels you are the right man, so I have been asked to take your consent. I said, if that is the task given by the nation, I will accept it. But on condition, there should be no political interference. I will not allow any politics. I will go only from crime to the criminal, whether the case is detected or not. He said, yes, it's acceptable to us. Acceptable to us. So I took a charter flight, special flight, Air India flight which was going to Bombay. We got it cancelled. I took that flight, landed in Madras. Also taking two companies of CRPF people because the DG Tamil Nadu said there is a lot of trouble. We want more force from Hyderabad. So when I landed that day evening, 32nd evening, next evening, the senior officers of the Tamil Nadu police and also the CBI officers already stationed in Madras, they all came to the airport to see me. They said, why do you take it up? There is nothing in this case. 17 dead bodies. Rajiv Gandhi's body was beyond recognition. And then there is a one head of a woman and two legs. Otherwise, there is no. I said, don't try to demotivate me. I accepted the challenge. Everything is possible. Nothing is impossible. So I told them, never talk to me about telling not possible and all that. So long story again, went to the hospital, met the lady who was badly injured in the blast itself. Then next morning visited the site, scene of offence at Sriperumbudur with our forensic experts and all that evidence. And it went on and all that. So when I came to, they gave me a building which was neglected by everybody as telling it has no luck. So it was in bad condition, but anyhow, no choice, I had to occupy that building. First thing I put was on a board written, so that nobody tried to, demotivate me. I said, nothing is impossible. What is called impossible takes long time, enormous effort, and of course, enormous risk also, but nothing is impossible. I put it up behind the desk, behind my desk there in the office. So anybody coming, even foreign correspondents, I said, don't say about the difficulties. I accepted a task which I know very well is going to be almost impossible, but I'll make it possible. This book, this was read out by President Dr. Abdul Kalam in Rashtrapati Bhavan when he was president, when he released my book on Rajiv Gandhi assassination. He read the book. He said, I like that passage, please read it. I read it. He said, this is also my philosophy, nothing is impossible. Anyhow, coming back, it was a 20 hours a day task from day one, no holiday. Neither I had a holiday nor my officers who came with me, worked with me could have it. We went all the time. We went announced. Then we found a camera, out of which 10 photos were developed, and we didn't know who they are. Then we announced published the photographs everywhere, on the bus, the bus and everywhere. And they said whoever can give information about them, we'll give them some cash or what. It was nothing those days. But then opened a toll-free line in my office. 2 numbers given. Anyone can give a ring and they can write to me anything. So we received every day hundreds of calls. It all in about 5,000 calls we must have dealt with. The officers were recording it, taking it and recording by turn. 8 hours duty. But every message came to me. We found many of them could be rejected, but some of them had to be pursued and followed up. Same way, about 4,000 letters also came to me, my office. We had a team to scrutinize all that. A few hundred letters were brought to my notice, out of which we followed up, verified. About 2 teams went around. So out of the 5,000 calls and 4,000 letters, about 10 of them were useful. But we followed it up, but everywhere we found the suspect had left just hours before we reached them. They were very careful. They operated in a very, very clever way. Meanwhile, we had to identify those people in the photographs whom we found out as the responsible for the assassination. Most of them are from Sri Lanka. It took a long time, and though it was no man's land. Even Sri Lankan government could not have an entry in that area which was controlled by the LTTE. And we had to conduct a lot of raids. 500 video cassettes were seized from various places, about 100,000 photographs, and a room full of books. All of them had to be scrutinized, out of which 4 or 5 video cassettes were brought to my notice. We had to scrutinize them, and some books were received. All that took long time. We would have examined thousands of people also, to identifying material objects and all that. It took a long time for that to say that I need about 10 hours time. You don't have time. But ultimately, we filed the charge sheet. On 24/5/91 was the investigation submitted. Exactly a year, the time given, we filed the charge sheet against 40 people, and 1044 witnesses were cited. Then 1477 exhibits were produced, 1180 material objects were exhibited. But we thought it will take time, but in spite, it was kept in held in a designated court, Tada court. Proceedings had to be kept confidential because the witnesses were scared of deposing. In spite of the fear, only 4 persons turned hostile, but we turned them hostile and got the evidence from them also. It's a long, long story, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think we have the time for all that to do that. Anyhow, ultimately, I had to appear in 2 commissions of inquiry. It was in Delhi. Justice Verma Commission of Inquiry, sitting judge of the Supreme Court, Constable Angle. Another commission of inquiry was also appointed. It turned out to be a politically motivated commission. It's a long story. I don't want to discuss all that now here with you. Anyhow, the trial court upheld my investigation, convicted all of them, and out of the 46, many have committed suicide. In between, about 21 people were charge sheeted, convicted, and they were all sentenced to death. It went to the Supreme Court. Long, 3-month-long appeal heard in the Supreme Court. 3 judges or eminent judges heard the appeal for 3 long months. And meanwhile, I had offered, the Vajpayee government had come into being. When I retired, they asked me, Mr. Brijesh Mishra, National Security Advisor, he said, we appreciate what you have done. Even though Rajiv Gandhi was a congressman, the Prime Minister Vajpayee is very happy with what you have done. So we are sending you as ambassador to a country. I didn't even ask which country. So don't accept any other job. I was so freshly independent. But the day I retired, Chief Justice Venkatachalaya, who was the chairman of the commission, requested me join the National Governance Commission. I was reluctant. I didn't want to be in Delhi. But then a lot of pressure from him and also from Chief Justice Verma, who became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, I had to yield to their request and join the commission instead of going as ambassador to maybe country would have done a cushier job. So it's a long story, ladies and gentlemen. Ultimately, the Supreme Court also upheld my investigation, and many of them were held guilty of lesser offences because they said it's not a terrorist offence. I agree, disagree with that, but whatever it is, 7 people were held guilty, 4 sentenced to death, 3 to life imprisonment, and all that. There is a long story. I will not go into that now. So thereafter, after completing my tenure in the National Governance Commission, I declined extension because I believe no officer should accept extension service. It affects their independence and all that. So now, since then, I've been involved in, of course, as an independent person, freely, of course, involved in human rights activities. Interfaith harmony is my passion now, and also spirituality. Involved in environment. There are so many other activities which I am involved all the time. I am kept busy all the time. Now, currently, during this lockdown period, I have taken up a fascination for meditation. Now I found meditation is medication. Someone has written to me, no, meditation is even better than medication. Somebody says meditation is mysterious. Now I am busy writing about that newsletter. I have written about 35 newsletters so far on various subjects. The last one was on food as medicine. I said if you eat properly food, right time, right quantity, then you don't need medicine. It has been widely circulated even in the World Bank and IMF and all that. I'm happy. Now I'm working on this meditation mysterious. I think I should complete it by tomorrow or day after tomorrow. There's a lot to be told, but the time is limited. So I have skipped many of those interesting episodes for you. Thank you.